Hi, if you're new here, my name is Michael.
And I'm Susan.
Today's guest is Josh Grisdale, literally from halfway around the world in Japan.
From the mountains to the city lights, it's beyond the destination. Let's go. Another story on the open road.
Josh is the founder of Accessible Japan and Tabifolk. All right. Well, Josh, welcome to Beyond the Destination. And I guess the first question I have for you today is being from Canada, moving over to Japan was a really big undertaking. So, what made you decide to move to Japan and being in a wheelchair, what were the hurdles that you found? And just give us a little bit of background about that.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, I'm originally from near Toronto in Canada, and I have cerebral palsy, so I use a power wheelchair to get around. And so I first became interested in Japan, I guess, back in high school. My high school had a Japanese class, and I thought it'd be great for a future career in IT. So I started taking the class, and my teacher really, taught us the fundamentals of the grammar and the language, but he also taught us a lot about Japanese culture and Japanese history. And it sort of got me really interested in wanting to see what it was really like. And so I came over to Japan after I graduated from high school for the first time. I came with my dad. And the biggest challenge we found was that there's really no information about accessible travel back in that time. It was about 2000. So we found like a Lonely Planet guidebook, and basically all it had was a little warning in the back of the book saying it's difficult to get around in a wheelchair, and that was about it. And so, my family always encouraged me and my sisters to follow our dreams. And so, even though there might be challenges, my parents wanted me to go and have that experience. So I came here with my dad. Obviously it wasn't as accessible as it is now, and there's a lot of challenges. Getting around was not as easy as it is now. A lot of places, especially in Tokyo, are very cramped, have a lot of stairs. At that time, a lot of the train stations, etc., weren't accessible. So, a number of challenges, but the biggest one probably being lack of information.
Okay. Now, when you moved over there for an able-bodied person, that's absolutely a major undertaking. What kind of hurdles did you find moving over there, especially being in a wheelchair when you first got there? Because you've been over there for what, 18 years now or something?
Yeah, I've been here for 18 years now. So I mean, it wasn't a sudden move. Like I came, that first time in 2000, and then before I moved here, I came maybe four more times, and sort of stayed longer, explored more places. And the last time I came before moving here, I stayed here about 2 to 3 months. So I got a lot more used to it. The biggest thing was, obviously getting into a very different, you know, welfare system than back in Canada. Being a foreign resident meant I had some, extra work ahead of me, and I wasn't sort of ushered into things the same way. So I think if I had some friends at the Center for Independent Living here in Japan, and they helped me navigate the system and get into it. So I actually ended up coming here for a few months with a caregiver from Canada who stayed with me until I was able to switch over to the Japanese care system. But yeah, there's, on top of the language things, there's always the bureaucratic language as well. It's much more difficult. And a lot of times, didn't understand the letters that were arriving to tell me what to do next, etc. So, it's definitely thanks to a lot of great friends that I was able to do it.
How did you overcome like the hesitation? I mean, for able bodied, they everybody has hesitations about doing a big step like that. How did you overcome that?
I just sort of knew this is the place I really wanted to be, and that was sort of it. I was also a lot younger, so it's probably a lot
Oh,
easier
okay,
to make those kind of crazy decisions. But
right.
like after a number of times visiting here, as every time I went to the airport to go back to Canada, I kind of felt a little bit of sadness, like I was leaving something behind.
Mhm.
And so, I really felt that this was a special place to me as opposed to just, a vacation destination. So,
Good.
I think that feeling of wanting to give it a try and try living here, and if I don't do it now, I don't know when I will. So I think that was probably the biggest motivators.
So since moving to Japan, nearly 2 decades ago, have you seen the accessibility landscape change in Japan since then?
Yeah, for sure. So when I first came here, like I had a lot of misconceptions. I don't know, maybe misconceptions, or I had a very limited view of what Japan was going to be like when I first came. So I expected it to be completely inaccessible. But at that time, it was a lot more accessible than I expected, which did give me the courage to come back again later. Um, and one thing I found that, especially in Japan, is that if it's a decision to become more accessible is made, then it's taken quite seriously. So, like, the government told the train stations that they need to become accessible, and they set rules. So, for example, like a train station with 3,000 daily users had to have an accessible route, and so they gave them some time to do it. But every time I came, more and more stations were accessible, more and more trains were accessible. There were more and more accessible toilets available, and so I could really see that change dramatically between the times I visited, and it just even now it's changing quite a bit. I think having the Olympics and Paralympics back in 2000, even though it didn't really happen the same way because of Corona, we didn't get as many guests as we were hoping for, obviously. But there's a sort of that external pressure to speed up accessibility, and that sort of brought up a lot more discussions about accessibility and disability, which sort of helped improve the speed at which things became more accessible. There's still a lot of challenges, of course, like government places and like public facilities are quite accessible, but if you start going to like local restaurants or stuff like that, they tend to be still very small, have steps and stuff like that, older buildings. Sometimes you get this unique thing in Japan where you'll have an elevator, but before the elevator there'll be 2 or 3 steps to get to it, because they weren't designed for wheelchairs. They were designed for lifting things up and down inside the building.
Okay.
So that's all. Those are slowly being changed, but there's definitely been a lot of improvements since then. So.
Well, that's great. So what was the process like becoming a Japanese citizen?
Yeah, so about just over 10 years ago now, like I'm on my second Japanese passport now. So the first 10 years one has expired. It's a little bit, I don't know, it's a lot more bureaucracy than anything else. There's some basic things you need to have in line first. Like you have to have lived in Japan for over 5 years. You have to have a sort of a way of supporting yourself. You have to have not committed any crimes. You have to sign some sort of document saying that you promise not to overthrow the Japanese government. And there's 1 or 2 others, I think, but I have to be over 18 years old. And so, if you have those sort of basic things in line, then they'll sort of help you. There's sort of more of a helping process. They'll say, okay, well, you're from this country, then you need to get these kind of documents filled out and prepare all these kind of things, and then you sort of get them all. Like I needed my birth certificate and like my parents' wedding certificates and even my sister's birth certificates, and translate those all into Japanese, but with a notarized professional translator. But then once you got all those in line, you sort of hand them this big folder of everything you've prepared, and you give it to them, and then you wait for, in my case, it was about a year. Other people longer, other people shorter. But they'll actually have sort of a caseworker that's assigned to you. And at one point, they'll come and visit your house to make sure that you are who you say you are, and that you are, not living in a fake address or something like that. So they came and they came in my house, did a quick look around to make sure it was somebody actually living here, and it was me. And I don't know if they did or not, but I've heard that they'll also talk to your neighbors and ask what they know about you. So before the date, I made sure to give my neighbors a little bit of a present before that. But and then after that, it just sort of, you get this like it wasn't like there's a government gazette kind of thing that comes out, and so you just sort of check every day to see if your name's listed as new citizens, and then you get a call from the Ministry of I'm not sure what it is, Ministry of Law, I guess, and then it says like, yeah, you can come in, get your forms, and then fill out the rest to finish your processing. So and it was after that, it was like I was expecting this big, like, thing you see in the movies where they have everybody gather in front of like this judge and have this big ceremony and everybody's hugging and all that kind of stuff. It was quite laid back, and I was the only one there in a suit, I think, and but I was still very proud of what I accomplished. So
Cool. Very cool. Well, one of the big questions I had for you, and one of the things that drew me to your story was Accessible Japan. I guess it was about 11 years ago you started that. What made you want to start it, and how has it evolved? Tell us a little bit about that so our viewers can understand what Accessible Japan is and how it benefits people.
yeah, so Accessible Japan is sort of my gift back to, or I hope it's a gift back to Japan. It's sort of like the guidebook that I wish I had had when I first came. As I mentioned before, there really wasn't much information back when I first came about accessible travel here in Japan. And I found that, Japan is actually quite an easy a country to travel around in with a disability. But I think a lot of people have this idea that it's difficult to get around and it would be impossible. So they don't even bother looking into whether they can or not. So one of the goals of Accessible Japan is to let people know that, yes, you can come here to Japan and have a great time. I think I try to show through PR that like you get a lot of pictures of like these like people getting squished onto trains or like these like mountain shrines or something like that. This like went up these like moss covered steps and all that kind of stuff, which is obviously these things do exist in Japan, but there's so much more that you can do that are separate from that, or even there's some accessible ones that are like that. And so I try to let people know that you can come here and have a great time. And then the second thing I try to do with it is that, for people who are interested in coming, they're, everybody, before they go on a vacation, they're usually quite excited about things. But as you probably know, for people with disabilities, there's a lot of times where that excitement quickly turns into fear and worries, and it sort of can take away from the joy of travel. So I want to give people like the resources that might need, or answer the questions they might be wondering about the places they want to go visit, so that they can know beforehand to see if it's worth it for them to go or not. I try to be as neutral as possible in the information I share, so it's not like you can do this or you cannot do this, because I use a power wheelchair, but I was asked one time, are there benches there? And I'd never thought about that because I'm always sitting down. So I never thought about getting tired when I was traveling. Whereas, that person's like, but my knee hurts quite frequently and I need to rest often, and so it sort of really opened my eyes to, trying to be as neutral and just tell people what's available, what's not available, so they can make those decisions. And then, thankfully, as it's become more and more known here in Japan as well, I've had the opportunity to, help work with Japanese DMOs, with the government as well, to promote accessible tourism here in Japan, and also to be able to help welcome foreign visitors with disabilities as well. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish through it.
Awesome.
Fantastic. That's an awesome endeavor. And, we look forward to coming to Japan. It's because
Looking forward to having you.
Your website and your story, we'd love to come and visit. It's really given us a, desire to come. So we'll definitely talk about that in the future. But
For sure.
next, I wanted to kind of talk to you about Tabifolk, and if you could give us a little bit of background on that as well.
Yeah, so Tabifolk is another project I have, and so Tabifolk, it's actually leading to where its origin is. Tabi means journey or travel in Japanese, and folk is like people. So it's sort of a word I made up, but it actually started off as part of Accessible Japan, because I was getting a lot of questions from people who were interested in coming via our inquiry form, and so I'd be answering a lot of the same questions that it'd be good to answer the question, but it wasn't quite worth having an entire page about. But I kept also thinking that well, if somebody's taking the time to ask this question, possibly 100 other people had the question but didn't take the time to fill out a form, or didn't want to do that. So I thought it'd be great if we had a place where people could ask these questions, and even if you don't have the courage to fill out the form, then you can still see what the answer is, without it, with it being more of an interactive thing. So it started off as a forum on Accessible Japan, but I also felt that, if I'm going to another country, I would like to know these things as well. So I wanted to create a place where, people could ask questions and get answers from either locals or people who have visited there before. So that's why I created Tabifolk. So it's an online community. It's a website. It's a app on iOS and Android, where people can come and they can join groups that they're interested in. So it's not all just in one place. There's a group for Japan. There's a group for the U.S. There's a group for cruises, etc. So people can share their experiences or ask questions of others. And at first it was usually me answering all the questions, but lately it's been really exciting to see that before I go get a chance to answer some of his questions, there'll be somebody who'll say, "Oh, I was there last week and it was like this," or "Oh, when I was there, I found this," or whatever. And so people saying, "I just wanted to share my experiences last time I was wherever." And there's also YouTubers there sharing their different videos of places they've been to. So yeah, it's an exciting new community that I'm working on. But yeah,
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, Josh. What's your next big endeavor? Any thoughts on the horizon?
I don't know. Yeah, and my parents are coming in November, I think. So I'm looking forward to seeing them again. So it's been a couple of years, so that would be nice. But yeah, maybe one day I'll get down to Florida to visit you guys. As I think I mentioned in postings before, going to the Florida Keys was sort of one of the last family vacations we took before coming to move to Japan. So it's always been a sort of a special place to me. And I've had the opportunity to do snorkeling and scuba diving a couple of times here in Japan. So I'd like to try that too, maybe in Florida. Yeah. So
nice.
Well, definitely, if you ever make it back to the U.S. and this part of the country, please look us up. We'd love to meet up with you. It's been a fascinating talk that we've had, and we really appreciate you watching the Accessible Traveler and making comments on our channel. And it's your story is really truly fascinating, and we're definitely going to keep following it. And we look forward to meeting you in person someday, and we really want to thank you for being part of our podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. And I always enjoy watching the videos and seeing where you guys are going to next, and learning about new places I've never heard of before. So
yep.
It's fun to follow.
We appreciate it. Definitely. Well, you take care of yourself, and look forward to seeing you again.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care, Josh. Nice seeing you.
Take care.
If you're interested in visiting one of Josh's sites, Accessible Japan or Tabifolk, the links are listed below in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
From the mountains to the city lights, it's beyond a destination. Let's go. Another story on the open road.